I think one of the biggest turning points in last year's presidential campaign was actually last August, 2024, on that stage in Phoenix when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. suspended his own presidential campaign to join forces with Donald Trump. And from that moment on, it really was on. It was a huge shift. By RFK Jr.'s side that entire time was Calley Means, who is now Secretary Kennedy's senior advisor, and he is covering so many things, a broad range of things throughout the medical industry, of course, the pharmaceutical industry, FDA, you name it. In particular, though, right now, the food industry. He believes everything starts there and educating our youth from school age on, now that America is officially one of the unhealthiest countries on the planet. What he revealed in this interview with me was shocking, it was dark, it was kind of scary. The statistics do not lie, but he also carries so much optimism with him because he knows that he, RFK Jr., they have the support of Donald Trump to continue to try their best to make America healthy again. Calley Means, an awesome, fascinating episode of the Sage Steele Show right now. Enjoy. Calley Means just walked over from the White House, right?
Yes.
I forgot how close I am. We're like 2 blocks away.
2 blocks. 10-minute walk.
That's amazing. Yeah. You got to get your steps in. If anybody needs to get their steps in to, back up all the instructions, then yes, that's you. Is that where you spend? How much of your time do you spend there now?
I got a call from Secretary Kennedy shortly after he was sworn in and was asked to be an SGE. So this is like what Elon did. You get 130 days, and I've been here 130 days straight. 20 hours practically a day at the White House. It's been intense.
20 hours a day?
Maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but it's full on. And I will say, I mean, it is wild. At 2 a.m., people are walking around the White House. There's been many late nights, and this place is packed with people working their butts off.
What does that say?
I think it says, according to people that are, at the White House from administration, very different than the previous administration. But it's pretty extraordinary. I mean, my first week, I mean, you had Elon, I know lots happened with that, but literally just running around every day, meeting to meeting, cranking. You have, whatever you think of these people, by many measures, the world's most competent and high-performing people just cranking. The CEOs and nonprofit leaders and advocates just world leaders rolling through the West Wing. And then, I've done startups. I've seen a lot in government. This is the highest octane group of people it's ever been assembled. It's pretty inspiring. And there are people walking the halls of the White House at 2 a.m. Cranking on big issues.
It is so cool. It is inspiring even from the outside. So I can't imagine what it feels like to be actually witnessing this every single day. I guess when he won the election and then leading up to the inauguration, you're like, okay, they're working hard. We know they're getting everything ready to go and pull the trigger as soon as he's in office. This has been going on long before he won that election. It feels like, you tell me, this has been going on since he lost the election in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely drunk the Kool-Aid. I think we're in the midst of potentially one of the 3 most consequential presidencies in American history. I think this dynamic where he was able to huddle and prepare for 4 years is a singular historical moment. He got all of his people together. And I saw, working with Bobby Kennedy during the campaign and kind of seeing the infrastructure they built, they've been preparing for this moment. Personnel is policy. They are taking that very, very seriously. The personnel department is really in some ways the most powerful department in the White House right now. They have a really say on everything. And I think that's extremely important. They spent years working on personnel lists going down the administration because, I think that's the thesis of President Trump's campaign and Bobby Kennedy's message, which is there's a real rot in our institutions. Yeah. The education department is not incentivized for more educated kids. The health department is not incentivized for healthier Americans. The military apparatus is not incentivized, I think, for national security at this point. It's incentivized for other things. So they worked on personnel and had thousands and thousands of pages of plans. So you've seen that with just this flurry of executive orders. I think the Big Beautiful Bill was one of the biggest legislative accomplishments in modern American history. And I think I think it's an argument. I think even people on the left would agree with this. There's been more action in the first 150 days than any administration in our lifetime.
It's incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot of preparation.
And I really loved one of the things President Trump said leading up to the election. I believe it was on Joe Rogan's podcast when, talking about what he learned from that first term. And he was so candid and open and kind of vulnerable about it, where he said one of his biggest mistakes was hanging on to some of the wrong people for too long, loyalty, which is admirable, actually, but then to know when to say, okay, enough is enough. The importance of having the right people around you. He knew that as a businessman. But this was completely different. And so when you talk about the personnel and the type of people that he has in there now, what a difference.
100%.
So what is that process like, though? Because you still have to make the adjustment. You still have to get them in there. You are retraining a lot of people, and there is no time to rest. So when you have all these people coming in and new and retrain, is it chaos? Organized chaos?
It's complete and utter chaos, and this is my take on it. And from the health side and this transformation we're trying to drive in healthcare, I don't know if other people in the administration agree with this, but I think we're laying the baseline and laying the argument for a 10-year journey. All of these initiatives President Trump's talking about are 10 years. We're not going to root out the deep state in the next 2 years fully. We're not going to transform the budget deficit in the next 2 years. We're not going to. It looks like are actually pushing hard on the immigration, but these issues and healthcare. I mean, we have a healthcare system, and this is, I think, a central tenet that resonated with voters. That's predicated makes money when people are sick. We clearly have something going on with our food when you look at rates of 38% of teens having prediabetes, and I think there's so much passion from voters and so much passion behind President Trump, and I think the Twitter kind of MAGA MAHA base just pushing for action. I think that's very important. That's an asset to the movement. But something Secretary Kennedy and I talk a lot about is this is so deep, and this is my big message from seeing inside. It is the corruption, the co-option of our governmental systems are breathtaking beyond imagination. There are deeply perverse incentives and a structure where, in healthcare, the interest groups that come, they're not even pretending. They do not argue when they're at the highest level arguing policies or arguing changes we want to make. They don't argue around the metric of improving American health at all. It is fully about jobs. It's fully about money. And it's transparent. It's not even a pretense. And that's really how a lot of these structures are built, with the revolving door and with the embedded corruption. So I do think part of the strategy, because you're not going to get control of these bureaucracies in the next 2 years. They are unruly, beyond imagination. But there's been a focus on massive wins that reset the paradigm. And with the health, people say, okay, we've banned the food dyes. Is that going to be enough? We've reformed SNAP. We've instituted better nutrition guidelines and better food labeling. And there's a lot of energy like, is that enough? Is that going to totally transform the system? No, it's not. We have a mass destructive system. Healthcare is 22% of our GDP. It's going to be a long time to reform that. But getting these wins, getting this action, it keeps this coalition together. And that's a big part of success, I feel like, to be candid. I think something that's being talked about a lot. We need to deliver for these voters, to keep these voters excited, have this vision of transformational reform across many categories as the defining movement in politics. And if we can get years and election cycles and more voter enthusiasm, it's just going to give that leverage to keep getting wins. The system's been screwed incrementally over the past 10 years, and we need to incrementally, in a bold way, get it back. But that's what I think about. We need to deliver for voters. And if we have 4 years, 6 years, 8 years where this type of movement in government keeps on, the deep state gets replaced and the culture gets replaced. And with healthcare, the NIH, they're resisting. I mean, they are absolutely resisting. They're laughing and they have memos they're sending around how to say they're doing work without doing work. There's literally a memo they're all sending how to not be subservient so you get fired, but actually not do anything because they think they're protecting science against President Trump and Bobby Kennedy, even though we're the sickest country in the world. So that's the type of culture. It's a deep culture of resistance to what's happening.
It makes me sick to hear that. Yeah. How is it not overwhelming to you when you look at, that's just NIH, that's just one area?
Mm-hmm. It is, this is kind of the back and forth I think we go in MAHA. There is something really dark that's happened. When I got awakened to this from my sister and my mom dying, my whole journey, the book my sister and I were going to write was titled at first A Sick System, and it was a diatribe about how depressingly broken the system is. And as we were writing it and thinking about it, we really wanted to flip it to a positive, good energy. And I do think there's a positive. I think there's a negative and positive. What we're trying to do is shine that positive light through. And taking MAHA, taking the health message, I mean, it's wild to me in closed door meetings with the senior White House staff, with Secretary Kennedy. All we're talking about is how to get kids moving more, how to get healthy food, like really positive things. You think there's some like conspiracy happening. The most closed door meetings are literally around how kids can eat healthier food. Like that is literally like the highest level of what we're talking about, and how to do education campaigns and better incentives. And I think it's like really positive, really light. And you put that up against the lobbyists who are relentless right now because there's trillions of dollars at stake, and the embedded, bureaucracies of these institutions. They see nothing other than creating more pills and creating more shots to address diabetes, obesity, cancer as the epitome of science. And I think this culture of our sick care system, where we're just accepting everyone being sick, and the only credible science, the only moral thing to do is create more jabs and pills for people, they see any questioning of that as an attack on science. And I think I've talked to it, and I've seen this, and I've really dug into the motivations. These are not evil people in their heads, but that's how they see it. I think everyone's been warped. I think, with the military industrial complex, if we're not starting more wars, it's a problem. With the education department, if we're not spending more and doing more, even though we spend more on education than any country in the world, but have worse results, we're doing poorly. So you have this information warfare where Trump clearly is shining light through.
Yes.
I mean, actually, if you poll the American people, they agree with him on almost everything. We've got to fix education. We've got to fix our school systems. We've got to reform our healthcare systems. Our healthcare systems are not working. So it's really a battle over the next 2 years of that like goodness coming through with I think a media and kind of elite opinion echo chamber that's telling Americans that this is bad. It's really a war, but it's pervasive.
I want to get into the specifics that you all are doing and being able to check some big things off the list very quickly in a moment. But first, when you look at the history of this and how you use the word dark, and I'm sure that that's a nice word to describe some of the things and the details of the things that you are seeing. Obviously, it didn't happen overnight. It's been going on for decades, even during that first Trump administration. How did we get, in your opinion, to this level of darkness and despair when it comes to the overall health of Americans? All right, if you've ever wondered how scammers get your phone number or why your inbox is flooded with spam, I can tell you why, and frankly, it's not good news. But it's definitely something you need to hear. It's also the reason why I am thrilled that Aura is the sponsor of today's show. Here is the deal. There are companies called data brokers that sell your data, and they do it without your consent, and they make billions of dollars selling your data to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. And while they're legally required to remove your info if you ask, they make the process so confusing and they make it hard on purpose. So Aura takes care of the hard part for you, automatically removing your info from these sites, and they keep it off. It's kind of important, right? Aura is all-in-one digital security. Maybe you already have a digital security tool, but Aura is different. And if you don't have it, it's kind of like locking the front door, but leaving the back door open. So Aura will alert you. Number one, alert you if your personal info is found on the dark web. That's number one. They also, number two, give you real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking. Number three, Aura is committed to 24/7 monitoring to help keep your identity secure, support teams based in the US, and they're available round the clock if, God forbid, something does go wrong. All of us need insurance, right? Aura includes $5 million in identity theft insurance protection. That's a big deal. So one app, every layer of protection, something I need for myself. I use it and my 3 college-age kids too, because I need them to be protected as well. So why not try Aura for free for 14 days? Aura.com/SageSteele. That's 2 weeks, enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your personal info off these data broker sites without you lifting a finger. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and neither should you. Aura.com/SageSteele. Try for 14 days free. AURA.com/SageSteele.
Yeah, I think it really drives to economic incentives. I think everything started with good intentions. And I go to like World War II. So we had to feed the world. So we created ultra processed food and we started packaging food. 100% of Americans' diet, before World War II was whole food, farm food. And then antibiotics and some medical innovations helped win World War II. So two things happened. The medical system saw very clearly that chronic disease treatments, that getting people on pills for life was the most profitable thing that they could do. And the first chronic disease medication in American history was the birth control pill in 1960, roughly. There's never been a pill in American history that you took for a prolonged period of time. And they very intentionally saw that and said, how can we take more and more conditions and make them chronic? So tell patients that you can't reverse this, but you need to take a pill for life. And today, 95% of spending is chronic conditions. So it went from 0% World War II to 95%, and
Goodness.
Medical spending only grew. When World War II ended, we spent 25% of our budget, our national budget, on food, an income for an American, and we spent 3% on healthcare. This incentive happened where this ingrained financial dependence on more and more sick patients led our agriculture system and our food system to basically downplay the importance of food, to downplay the importance of the root causes of why we're getting sick, and the medical system to essentially accept that sickness was a given and create, as my sister at Stanford Med School, like her first year, right? The only serious medicine is prescriptions. The only serious medicine is medical interventions. It's created this culture in medicine where Casey was mocked at Stanford Med School for talking about nutrition. She said, they told her, they actually said, stop being a pussy. You are not a nutritionist. You are a doctor. And we've created, you actually see it in the backlash to Casey, having the tenacity to leave the system and speak out. That's not serious. That's not serious medicine. We've been gaslighted into this, and it's happened for so many decades that serious scientists at the NIH and at these systems see it that way. They see any talk of nutrition as woo, and that's been very pervasive and very convenient. So today, again, 95% of spending is on these Band-Aids. You look at the NIH, they've spent $10 billion in the past decade, not on what causes Alzheimer's, but on Alzheimer's treatments. We haven't made any progress. We've spent well over $1 trillion in the past decade on cancer research. Cancer rates are still going up. We're not searching for the root cause of why we're getting sick. We're only searching for drugs. And then those drugs, and I find this very depressing, we don't ask a question about how much those are.
Right.
These treatments, we're paying $2.1 trillion in Medicare and Medicaid. These drugs, they're able to price them as they want. They're sometimes millions of dollars per patient. But then when you talk to senators and you talk to traditional policy staff about potentially increasing school lunch funding, which is now so cheap that all we can afford is ultra processed food for kids who are all getting sick and then needing these drugs, it's not even a starter. So we're really trying to change that culture to where we're spending these trillions of dollars. What's the best way to actually appropriate those to actually get healthier? It's clearly getting away from drugs more towards food. Again, this is a pretty bipartisan, pretty these ideas are radical. They're like radical within the system. And again, it's very depressing when you put these ideas out, how aggressive and violent the opposition is. How, we had a meeting recently with the food industry. And they brought an advocate from a school lunch group. And the school lunch group said it's really not good for kids to raise funding for school lunches. We need to keep school lunches cheap. It's really important. And I'm like, who are you? Like, are you being paid fully by the food industry? She's like, yes. And they have like weaponized school lunches to literally lobby that we shouldn't be increasing more nutritious options for school lunches. So this is like large food companies. Like they twist the issues like in a really kind of, when you step out, kind of evil way.
That's shocking to me. Also, that they would be dumb enough to bring someone that pretty much lays it out there.
Yeah, we've had really good engagement with a lot of industries, and this is a push and pull, and we don't want these companies to go away. I'm surprised sometimes when they use the tactics that are kind of old school tactics. Like there's been a revolution in this country where I think thanks to largely to Secretary Kennedy and President Trump, we are awakening and realizing that there's something not right. But these are the tactics that have worked for decades in DC.
Yes.
You weaponize the school lunch debate. You know, they had the NAACP lobbying that we need to government subsidize Ozempic because it's a racial justice issue. The food industry actually has used influencers to lobby medical guidelines to not weigh patients anymore because that's gonna be
hurts
fat
feelings
phobic.
and it hurts
This weaponization. That's a clear sign from the Trump administration. I think this bullshit doesn't work anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Didn't Michelle Obama focus on school lunches?
Okay, so Michelle Obama, interestingly, started in the first year on school lunches and food.
Yeah.
She, in a year later, changed her entire focus to let's move. So one thing the food industry does is they go hard on exercise, and which is very important. But for the past couple decades, the leading exercise advocacy organizations are all big food fronts. So if you go to the large exercise promotion groups, the board members are the CEO of Pepsi and the CEO of large food companies. So Michelle Obama, actually, I give her credit. I do give her credit for talking about school lunches. She was belittled by me, by Republicans. She was right.
Why was she belittled
she was
by you?
I mean, the right, and this is a fair criticism. A lot of people say, well, Bobby's talking about the same things Michelle Obama talked about. What's the deal? The Republicans attacked her. Like she was attacked, for lecturing about food and stuff. And she did get a lot of attacks on Fox News for being the nanny state. So I do think like in that first year, she was onto something, and I do give her credit. It was interesting. The chief of the Secretary of State for President Obama was John Kerry, who's married to Teresa Heinz Kerry.
Yes, Heinz.
There was a ton of food lobbying, and she completely changed to exercise.
Really?
And she ended up partnering with Walmart and a bunch of other big food retailers and started to move the message more to hunger. Now, hunger is a big issue, but this is another thing. We're relentlessly lobbied by hunger advocacy groups, all funded by food companies, who are saying it's really actually racist and classist to talk about better food. We just need to get more food to more people, cheaper calories. And she actually got very co-opted by that. And that's been co-opted on the left a lot. Hunger is a signal of big food lobbying, because what hunger translates to when you're talking about policy is let's just get the cheapest food possible. So she did fold a bit. The other problem with Michelle Obama is she was really trying to do top-down mandates. So she was trying to mandate that schools don't serve meat. And she actually created a 500-page document with the USDA of guidelines. To today at schools, I go visit schools. There's arcane, crazy rules where if you have a veggie burger, it has to contain seed oils and it has to contain this and that. And it's a big lobbying document. The chefs at schools spend more time reading this guideline document where you lose federal funding if you don't follow it than actually cooking. What we're trying to do is actually not have top-down mandates, but we're going to make the nutrition guidelines 4 pages. They used to be 450, 500, and basically just empower schools and work with them with Linda McMahon with one guideline, which is serve real food. But maybe in California, they'll have more kale, and in Montana, they'll have more beef. Like Michelle Obama was a little bit top-down. She also was talking a lot about taxes and soda taxes. We're not doing that. We are focused on 2 things. Where is the government spending money? Mm-hmm. Right now, the government spends about $70 billion a year just from food stamps on ultra-processed food. We're the only country in the world that sends money for the low-income nutrition program. It's the low supplemental nutrition assistance program. We send the majority of that to literal junk food. You can buy Twinkies, Oreos on food stamps. Soda is the number 1 item. It's about 15% of spending, sugar, water. So we're subsidizing diabetes for low-income children and then paying for the healthcare costs. So we're focused on that. The government shouldn't be spending money on this stuff. We spend tens of billions of dollars on school lunches. There's no sugar limit with school lunches. We're changing that. The nutrition guidelines, the dietary guidelines, this is a heavily lobbied document and is going to be a massive win for President Trump. It's going to be the boldest nutrition document in American history. It's coming out in a couple of months. The reason that's so highly lobbied, and this is pretty dark, is that flows to government procurement. So the schools, the military, jails, government facilities has to buy based on the nutrition guidelines. And it's wild. I mean, you have people come in and say, to this day, that sugar isn't harmful and sugar doesn't cause obesity. We got lobbying to this day saying it's anti-science to attack sugar as a cause of obesity. And I'm like, where do you think you are? Like where do you think? But that's worked before.
Yeah.
We have relentless lobbying to this day that meat is bad and that we only need to be eating grains. I mean, this is straight-faced lobbying backed by a ton of money. And again, that's the really optimistic, I think one of the signature points about President Trump right now. We're going to do the right thing. But again, it is dark because this document impacts children's health so much. And it's not a conversation. And I do think this is maybe something I brought to it because I grew up in DC. I'm pretty cynical. I am very, I want a revolution. Yeah. But the revolution is going to happen by having these discussions. And I like having them. And we need to bring the food industry along. But the weapon we have right now is that voters voted on this issue.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just give one more example. When we were doing the SNAP reform, this was a massive thing to work with states to take soda from SNAP. I mean, Coke makes $4 billion a year just from taxpayer money on SNAP, $4 billion a year. And this is a huge, huge thing. And the chattering class, the lobbyists, I mean, this is like the biggest thing for the beverage industry. The American Beverage Association is extremely powerful in this town. And they were laughing that we were talking about this because it was so obvious it wasn't going to happen. This is the most important issue to them. And we just had Texas and Florida, 20 states take soda off. At a high level meeting, right, we talk about, and it should be talked about, these soda companies are threatening to pull donations. There's, senators that they're rallying up that are pissed.
Wow.
And usually, and this is just the way politics works, and I think it's fine, But there's a lot of money and a lot of corporate influence, and they make that felt very pronounced. But for the first time, we're able to cite the voters. And what the voters have given Bobby Kennedy is in a discussion where there's a ton of force on the White House from corporate interest. He's able to say, well, this is what people expected. This is why people voted for the coalition. This is why women and young people and independents came and voted for President Trump for the first time. That argument wins. So the way to beat the corporate influence is to vote on the issue. And that is the generational, I think, opportunity of this MAHA movement, that the awareness among senators and among people in the administration and people around states that moms vote on this issue allow people to tell the soda lobbyists or the food lobbyists or what have you, that they're not able to help. That's the key thing.
It was incredible to have sat down on my show last summer with Secretary Kennedy at the time, just running for president. And certainly, hey, it was a campaign, and you're anti-Trump and you're anti-Biden, and now we're all one big happy family. But to me, on that stage in Phoenix, was the turning point of the election, because you brought all those people who were like, okay, yes, I get it with Trump, but I don't like this. I don't know if I can do it.
Right.
And then you had Bobby Kennedy come out and talk and create another acronym with MAHA, and look what happened. So I love that. We, all of us, have to continue to use that. This is not even about opinions of this. This is about the facts as to who voted for President Trump and Bobby Kennedy. In some cases, simply because of the health reasons. So you've got that, right? In your back pocket, you've got Secretary Kennedy, who's fearless as well.
That's our weapon. Nobody could ever name another HHS secretary. The fact that there's this base and the fact that it gelled, and I knew this was going to happen, because I was in the unique position of knowing the Trump campaign and supporting them and working with them, but also through my advocacy, getting to know Secretary Kennedy really well, Bobby Kennedy at the time, the candidate. And everyone was skeptical that this would work. I knew it would work. And being in that room in Phoenix, it was one of the most electric political moments I've ever seen in my life. And you felt it. Yes. There was something real there and something visceral with voters. It was like nothing I've ever seen. And the reaction to Bobby Kennedy throughout the Trump campaign, that shocked people. I knew it was going to happen. Because at the Bobby Kennedy rallies, I would ask their hippie-looking supporters, would you support Trump or Biden? Oh, yeah, Trump. And they didn't look like Trump voters.
Really?
And no. And I don't think they even knew they were potential Trump voters. But President Trump, his core message were the same as Bobby's, that the system is rigged against us. I don't think their message is inherently political or partisan. It's more of a larger spiritual issue. Yes. I think the core of what they're actually hitting on with voters is there's a cultural problem in this country. This is what Casey talks a lot about. And I think this is a core message from Bobby. We're doing amazing health policy. But the only thing that's going to change this country is a cultural awakening. I mean, we're not having respect for our kids, and we're not having respect for what we eat, and we're not having respect for our environment. I think it honestly gets to the environment. We're reclaiming some of these issues and actually asking, I think, core questions about like life right now when it gets to the health issue. That's what I think the core of what Bobby's tapping into, is that there's something much deeper wrong, and President Trump taps into that. So I really felt from talking to both campaigns that they had that similar strain, and it really worked. And they have an incredible relationship, and this partnership is real. I think it's difficult, and why I'm here is these are new coalitions. You have 90% of farmers voting for President Trump, and then anti-pesticide advocates. You have pharma executives and anti-pharma advocates. I mean, you've actually got a complex coalition, but I think it actually is working, and is going to work, and making this coalition work. I mean, I'll be honest, my singular goal for transforming health in this country and policy is that this movement continues, is that it helps the midterms, is that it's a swing issue in the midterms. I think that's going to force the Democrats, frankly, to be more MAHA. And I think 2028 is going to basically be arguing who's more like Bobby Kennedy. I think that.
It's incredible.
I think if this movement can, because he's right. He's just obviously, like the core premise is obviously right. So that's what we think about.
Strategically, yes, it's a no-brainer. Yeah. You have to continue to just crush it on that issue. And then, yes, you're focusing on the darkness. You're focusing on all the things, the corruption. It's heartbreaking, actually. And there's so many wins right now. You mentioned this, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is SNAP, and even more wins now, right? With states signing up. Can you go into detail for those people who aren't familiar with SNAP and the importance of it?
Yeah. At the highest level, more transformation reform to our food system has happened in the past 6 months than any time in American history. SNAP is the fourth largest program in the U.S. government. We spend $120 billion a year to subsidize food for lower income people. It's huge. It's actually a mass distortion of agriculture markets. I mean, it's a huge driver of the market forces. A lot of Americans depend on it. And it's decided by the states. And as states in the past, bipartisan, have asked the USDA to change ingredients, like take soda off. No brainer. And this was an issue I worked on 15 years ago, early in my career in DC. And it was talked about then. And Coca-Cola weaponized civil rights groups. They had the NAACP say it was racist to restrict choice, even though it's government-funded soda that's giving lower-income kids diabetes. And they won that battle. The USDA has rejected these waivers. New York submitted them. California, I think, has submitted them over the years. And there was no real pressure. That there was a huge just domination from the food industry on these organizations. 6 months ago, I was working with Secretary Kennedy roughly 6 months ago, right before the election, and we were brainstorming with some governors. Could we pass SNAP waivers? Could we actually have a revolution in the states actually ask to reform SNAP so that more money is going to whole food, to good food from local American farmers instead of soda and Twinkies and Oreos and candy bars? And we were told it was crazy. We were told, like, that is the singular issue that the food industry will fight harder than anything. You have no chance. And we tried, and we talked to a couple governors, and it's been an explosion around the country. So the core thing about this is 20 states independently, bipartisan, have gone against soda lobbyists. This Texas bill and this Texas effort to do this was the most lobbied issue in the state of Texas this year on a food bill legislation that involved this. The single most lobbied bill in Texas. CEOs of large companies were flying into states. They were going to Louisiana and going to West Virginia. The West Virginia governor who did this said he has never in his life had more pressure in his life. They said they were going to end his career, that he'd be done, he'd be over. The type of threats to not do this were overwhelming. But they also said, these governors, one by one, said that the calls they got from voters and moms, they received more calls on this issue than any issue they've dealt with in their political career. Lois Goldkorst in Texas, who's the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee in Texas, who's been in the Texas legislature for decades, has said that she's never seen more visceral voter reaction to these issues. So I don't think this is even coming through in the media. Like, there is something like real happening, something we saw when Bobby Kennedy,
through in the media.
Something we saw when Bobby Kennedy was out on that stage and throughout the Trump campaign. I knew it, right? I knew it watching Bobby's reaction with Trump voters that the media wasn't covering this, right? There's something really, really real. So the great thing about this SNAP issue, it's been a partnership with the states. And you've had governor by governor get threatened. Their political career was threatened. They have the CEOs of major companies come and threaten to destroy them, literally. And then the voters whispering in their ear or shouting in their ear that this needs to happen has led a cascade of states. So Texas and Florida. And Gavin Newsom is probably going to do it in the 3 largest states. He's being shamed into doing it. They're all making this decision. So it's showing the resonance of this issue. And it's created this state patchwork where the food industry doesn't know what to do. It also happened with these food dye bills. I think it's really important. I mean, these food dyes are in like 60% of processed food. They're neurotoxic. It's not everything, but it's a really important symbol. And states around the country ban these artificial dyes, these petroleum-based dyes in their food, and created this patchwork. So that actually led all this state action to us to meet with the food industry, and they're actually begging us to have federal change, and now voluntarily doing it federally, because when they have the state patchwork, it doesn't work. This bill in Texas also included a food labeling bill. So now Texas and Louisiana and conservative states are saying the federal government's failed us. We're going to have better disclosure on our food. Like, what's more American than that, knowing what we're eating? Yeah. There's an insane hand that lobbies against even labeling what's in our food. A lot of the chemicals aren't even labeled. So Texas passed that bill, absolutely aggressively lobbied against, and now other states are. And now that gives the federal government a lot of leverage for nationwide food labeling. So we're going to have, for the first time in well over a decade, almost 2 decades, a transformation in food labeling. We're going to have front of pack. It's going to be much more informative. That's because of the state action. So, yeah, I don't think it's coming through in the media a lot, but there's the fact that all these states see this resonating more than any other issue in America. This rallying cry from moms to make their kids healthier. It's powerful. You mean even in the packaging and how it's presented? So the labels and what's in it is on the front? Yeah, we're going to have the FDA right now is going through a front of pack labeling process. Democrat and Republican administrations have talked about this for many years. So yeah, I mean, just looking at the past 6 months, we're initiating front of pack food labeling, SNAP reform, GRAS reform. It's wonky, but the FDA, when Secretary Kennedy came in, did not have a list of what's in our food. The food industry is able to self-police what's in their food. It's crazy. You can't even make this up. No. But they are able to deem their ingredients as generally recognized as safe, GRAS, without even speaking to the FDA. So there are 10,000 chemicals in our food, and there's about 300 in Europe. So there's all these thousands and thousands of chemicals that, through a loophole, the food industry is able to just deem as safe. And a lot of these chemicals are not safe, like titanium dioxide, which is banned in almost every other country, huge issues. So what the FDA did, and again, Biden was talking about this, Obama was talking about this, everyone's talked about it. Everyone's talked about it for literally 2 decades. Within 50 days, we jammed that reform through at the FDA, and now it's a radical concept. But the food industry is actually going to have to prove the safety of what they put on our food. I mean, this is not a conservative or liberal thing. The FDA actually wasn't even able to do post-market review of chemicals that they thought were harmful and have any insight into what's in our food. It's crazy. Like it doesn't even sound real. But like this is one of the major things the food industry didn't want. They've fought it for 20 years. That changed in 30 days. So underneath the surface, right, there's radical reform happening. But, and this is a huge message, I think, for as we think about this, these reforms are not going to change the issue. What's going to change the issue is just a radical awakening of individual people, of reading labels and caring more about their health, and frankly, asking more questions of their doctors. I mean, the biggest, honestly, accomplishment I feel and the most pride I felt in this movement is when I talked to a friend from business school who's also a doctor. She runs the largest dermatology clinic in the country. And she pulled me aside at our reunion, and she was very upset. She was very upset with me. And she said, 5 years ago, we have data, almost 100% of patients, and they have thousands of doctors, didn't ask questions when they got a prescription. They just took the prescription. And the average meeting length was 8 minutes. Now the average meeting length is 18 minutes. And 80% of patients are asking questions, and their doctors are so annoyed. And she was indignant about this. She was like, the doctors are so upset and belittling these patients in the break rooms because they're asking, what's the natural cause? What's the root cause? Is there a non-pharmaceutical way I can do this? And she hated it. They hate this. And I'm like, what are the issues that are being prescribed for? It's like eczema and other skin issues. And I'm like, are those metabolically based? Are those tied to what people are eating and their root cause habits? She's like, yeah, of course. I'm like, why is it a bad thing that people are asking for a natural cure? The medical community hates that. They're literally laughing at these patients and wishing for Bobby to go away and wishing for this movement to go away. I could not think of a better accomplishment or more impactful accomplishment that Secretary Kennedy and Donald Trump have helped unleash and legitimize this skepticism of our medical system, and that patients are searching for more root cause solutions. It is just constant belittlement from the media, about supplements and about diet fads, and they're trying to belittle all this. They're trying to belittle what Casey says. This is the truth. This is the medical truth. If people go on more of a path of curiosity about their nutrient deficiencies, getting, blood tests and understanding what's going on inside their body, going on that path of curiosity, they're going to be much healthier, much more thriving. And that, to me, this cultural awakening is what's most important that's happening right now. And that's totally because of President Trump.
I'm so sad, I guess, to hear what I kind of already knew, but when you go in depth like this. And I remember being a younger mother with one of my kids who, was seeing a therapist and we were told she needed some medication. I didn't ask enough questions. I very much regret that. And she's fine and she's thriving now. But I trusted. Ends up it was the wrong thing and it could have been serious. I trusted this doctor. I trusted all my doctors. I trusted my doctors when I was pregnant here in Washington, D.C. And they said, yes, you have to go do this and you have to take this test and this chromosomal test. And they don't talk to you about the risks with anything until something happens. And, I'm one of millions of people who probably have some regrets about just fully giving them 100% of my trust and not asking questions because I didn't want to offend them. I didn't want to question their expertise because I have none. That's why I'm paying you. That's why you are a doctor.
Right.
And now look, now the trust is gone, not just from small experiences like mine, but also because of COVID and the vaccine and what we were told to do and to trust. And then we have Dr. Fauci out there admitting that he made up a 6-foot rule, admitting that masks never worked. So that's my issue now, one of many, is how do we rebuild the trust in our medical system and our doctors when you gave the example of doctors getting pissed off and annoyed and belittling patients for doing the job we should have been doing the whole time, which is just asking questions in order to understand how do we get the trust back?
It's not a talking point. This administration is trying to reclaim science. And Bobby is not telling anyone at the NIH what the answer should be. He's trying to make sure that they're not threatened over asking taboo questions. Dr. Fauci, until Jay Bhattacharya came in recently, has essentially led the NIH for 40 years. Every single employee at the NIH was hired and essentially in the sphere of Dr. Fauci. His acolytes ran the NIH ostensibly, but he was essentially leading that organization. And that organization spends $50 billion a year on academic research and sets the agenda for every single research institution in the country because they basically follow the NIH's research lead. And the NIH over the past 30 years has had zero curiosity about why we're getting sick, and it has been co-opted beyond imagination by a system that makes money when people are sick. The head of the psychiatric division of the NIH now says that Bobby, it's misinformation to say that we're overprescribing SSRIs, even though that 25% of girls and women in the United States are on some kind of psychiatric drug. The degree that the institutions of our research systems are co-opted by this interventionist-based system is beyond imagination. And that follows economic incentives of these unbelievably powerful and rich pharmaceutical companies that only make money when people are sick, do not make money when your daughter, goes on, a path of curiosity and really gets the root cause. Those SSRIs are supposed to be taken for life. They don't cure anything. And, not that they're not potentially necessary in some points, but there is a huge invisible hand. So we are absolutely trying to get the right personnel and change the culture at the NIH, because what that does is that impacts culture, right? If you had unrelenting NIH research about precision and more personalized mental health techniques and how our mental health crisis is clearly tied to a deeper cultural issue, and research on that, and research about food, and research about how we don't need to necessarily jab ourselves, for all these chronic conditions like obesity and diabetes, but actually there's a root cause, dietary interventions. I mean, that's a radical concept. That is seen as like serious science right now. But if the NIH has billions of dollars of research saying things that we know to be true, we know intuitively to be true, and actually reinstills that intuitive thinking for Americans, it changes culture and eventually changes our medical incentives. The NIH research, this broken NIH research, has informed our health spending to where all of our medical codes are tied to research. And the research is super corrupt. So all of our medical codes go into, the sick care system. So I think getting the control of research is really important. I do think that there's a market pull too. Young people aren't going to the doctor as much anymore. They're actually using AI. I mean, I actually find it pretty inspiring. When I type in, issues to AI, it's giving root cause advice. It's giving diet. It's not saying take a drug.
Yeah.
If you type in like your diabetes, your obesity, it actually gives. People are, getting more blood tests, understanding, reading books, the best-selling books, the best podcasts. They're all so people are like clamoring for information. And I do think this cultural awakening that's happening is going to eventually pull the market, because I think people are just going to opt out of the traditional healthcare system. If there's one message I have, from seeing inside the NIH, the FDA, it's that patients are on their own right now when it comes to chronic disease. The system is not worthy of trust. It's worthy of being listened to, but it's not worthy of trust. It has been absolutely co-opted by this interventionist sick care system, diet issues and root cause issues, and getting more in touch with our spiritual health and the interconnectivity of disease is not seen as a serious concept. It is broken and co-opted beyond imagination. And I can say that definitively. People can believe me or not. And I cannot stress more. You should listen to your doctor. But you should go on your own path of empowerment when it comes to chronic conditions. If you're a child or you are obesity, depression, heart issues, high cholesterol, like the things we generally deal with, you are on your own to a large degree. I cannot stress that more. It's the simple truth. And I honestly think that the government should be more clear on that. I think this is one thing with the Trump administration, with Secretary Kennedy. Thank God they're leading the government. But the government and these institutions, they're trillions of dollars and they're larger than any one person. They're working to reform that. But we should be really clear when it comes to health. It is very important to fight back against this infantilization of, this trust that they've built, and shaming moms to give their kids drugs.
Yeah.
Parents are now being shamed to not give their kids Ozempic if they're 12. The American Academy of Pediatrics says that parents are doing the wrong thing if they don't give their kids Ozempic if they're obese at 12, instead of talking to them about dietary interventions. I mean, this is what's happening. It is not good. And I think an appropriate government message, quite frankly, is you really need to get a second opinion. You should not be taking a lot of the government up to this point dietary advice. It's been totally co-opted and terrible. We need to get back to common sense and root cause. And we're fighting that, but that message, there needs to be a patient awakening, which I think is happening.
And if you go into your doctor for yourself, for your mother, father, elderly parent, for your child, and you don't feel comfortable asking those questions based on their responses, if you feel like you're being belittled, what do you do? Okay, again, the framework is if there's something like imminently that's going to kill you, an acute issue, if you have an infection, a burst appendix, like if you're at the end of the road of, cancer or life-threatening heart issues, listen to, give your doctor much more credence. 100%. The U.S. medical system is miraculous at acute things that are about to kill you, miraculous at that. But that's about 7% of healthcare spending. It's actually a small part of it. If you are dealing with something that is chronic and not life-threatening, if you are dealing with that high cholesterol where they're trying to put you on the statin, if you're dealing with the high blood sugar, pre-diabetes where they're trying to put you on that metformin, if they're trying to jam that SSRI down your kid's throat, if they're trying to put your kid on Ozempic, you've got to understand that those doctors have not learned, due to our broken medical system where the credentialing organization is totally bought off by pharma. And that doctor did not learn about the interconnectivity of disease. My sister at Stanford Med School, Excel honors, and then surgical residency, did not understand how inflammation that she was cutting out of people's faces with head and neck surgery and sinusitis surgeries was tied to diabetes or tied to cardiology issues. She saw and learned that heart disease, obesity, diabetes are all totally separate issues. If you have those conditions in the current system, you're seeing different doctors getting different drugs. They're not even talking to each other.
chronic disease is interconnected. If you get to basic root cause habits, if you have more curiosity about your blood work, I would see a functional medicine practitioner, get a lot of blood work, understand what your nutrient deficiencies are. These symptoms are a sign of something deeper. My mom, I talk about a lot, had metabolic issues, potentially gestational diabetes when I was born. It's, oh, that's fine. Here's a drug. That was a sign for her. That was a sign for her to understand how to actually reverse this. We need to see symptoms as gifts, and what to do. Again, we talk about this in our book, but I'm a huge proponent of this company, Function Health. I have no relation to it, but it gives you a bunch of blood tests, a full, almost like, I see it as like a roadmap to your body. I didn't realize I had a vitamin D deficiency. I after getting the COVID vaccine, I had a low-grade autoimmune issue. I mean, I had some other nutrient imbalances. Like that gave me a roadmap to improve my diet in certain ways, improve my supplementation. I felt much better. I mean, I cannot express to you how many people, stories I hear where they are overweight, their kids are struggling with various issues, and they just understand their blood tests, read some books, listen to some podcasts, and start thinking about these simple habits, but cutting ultra-processed food out of your diet. I mean, I thought that was a simple recommendation in the book. That's been, I've heard from thousands of people, just that simple recommendation is like radical. You don't hear that from the medical system.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say.
Okay.
And I think should be the message of our healthcare system. Those symptoms should be welcome signs of patients need to go on their own path to figure out what's going on at the root cause. And you're not going to get that from the traditional medical system.
Symptoms are a gift.
Yeah.
I love
Thank you.
turning it around that way. And let's not ignore them. And I know some of us have been guilty of that in the past. I want to real quick touch on this because you mentioned soda and obviously trying to make sure that it is not subsidized by the government anymore, anywhere, especially in the SNAP program, et cetera. Demographics seem to matter a lot with a lot of these issues, but especially with this. The NAACP, who's saying it is racist to try to limit the intake of soda in the Black community?
Yes, this is one of the most depressing things to me. How there is big inequality in this country. I mean, a lower income man in the United States dies 15 years earlier than an upper income man, and that is largely, it's many factors, but largely because of metabolic health and nutrition, some of these root cause things. The NAACP, which has done great work in American history and as obviously a revered institution, at the same time takes money from the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry, and they're registered lobbyists. They go into the Senate and lobby on behalf of the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry. And what's so evil to me is that they weaponize this affordability issue on food. They literally say like, oh, we shouldn't raise. These people lobby for the food industry, these groups, for not increasing spending on lunches so that it's so low that you can't afford whole food. They actually oppose spending on lunch. They say it's anti-scientific to have whole food, that there's processed food is fine. And they actually lobby to keep Oreos and things like that on school. Like they're expressly lobbying for that on behalf of these front groups. And they're using this affordability. We can't afford more food. We're going to cause starvation. So that's when they're talking about an increase from like $3 to $4 on school lunches. But at the same time, they're arguing that Medicaid should subsidize Ozempic at a cost of $1,300 per patient per month. So when it comes to Ozempic, the NAACP and these other front groups are arguing $1,300, no question, pay that from the government. And the next meeting, they're arguing we can't do school lunches 3 to 4. So when it comes to food and not poisoning our kids to begin with, which is the biggest inequality issue in the country, they're actually arguing we can't touch that, and kind of weaponizing this affordability issue. It's like, when you back up, we are going bankrupt from Medicaid, from healthcare costs. $1.3 trillion we spend on Medicaid for lower income people. So we're giving people and incentivizing really bad food and through lobbying, and then just gloves are off when it comes to drugs. There's no question on how much we're going to pay for the drugs. It doesn't make any sense. And they're lobbying for that, using and weaponizing racial justice and inequality issues. So again, you go down the arguments, and sometimes I do I ask the lobbyists to step back and understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
This is real cultural change, but this is the opportunity of this moment and of the Trump administration. This isn't policy right now, but what we need to get to is really look at this gargantuan amount of money that we spend in the United States on these matters. And I always think about that $5 trillion we spend on health. If we could just look at that and ask, how do we incentivize lower income kids to eat better food? And I'll also say with this lobbying, and you see this from the left, there is a disdain for poor people. The way they talk is well, these people can't help but poison themselves. These people are, you're not gonna get these folks to do anything other than eat their crappy food and drink their. So I don't think that's true. I think people want to thrive. I think moms want their kids to be healthy. And I've talked to a lot of people of all different socioeconomic, racial, whatever. I think Americans want to be healthy. I think we have this psyop where we feel like it's inevitable. And that idea comes through so much in conversations with lobbyists and kind of the conversations it's this, no, nobody's going to change. People don't change. I look at my mom, she followed the nutrition advice from the food pyramid. She went to the Mayo Clinic and all the best hospitals, is told to take the drugs, no problem. The American Diabetes Association, she had prediabetes, their guidance was actually you can eat as much sugar as you want as long as you take your drugs. I mean, these industries are all co-op. She followed the advice, but she wanted to live. She absolutely would still be here. And if a doctor told her 20 years ago, or she had more incentives or more guidance to understand the root cause of her issues. I think that's the case for so many people. So I have this dream that we really, look at Medicaid, look at lower income people, give them choice. What if they could use those $1.3 trillion on Medicaid funds to, get functional medicine drug tests, understand what's happening with their kids, get some dietary coaching, potentially use that money, to bridge the gap on not, only being able to afford ultra processed food. There's a real positive vision there that really is to me, the positive road that we're going on, and I think would change the country.
I think sometimes it is so overwhelming for the average citizen who is not in the medical field or health field of any kind. And again, it goes back to the trust issue. And when you start to unpack all of this and you realize that you have really been essentially lied to and used your entire life, and then where do you begin? Where do you begin? And especially when you look at some of the people in those lower socioeconomic status in those areas, in the inner cities, et cetera, where do you begin? And it has to, go ahead.
Yeah. No, please.
I mean, to me, it is just not being afraid to question.
Right.
But when you can't afford to go to Whole Foods, when you can't afford to get some of that organic food in your schools, you're a long way away from really noticeable changes in the food to help at a young age to start kids off on the best path.
Right.
That's where you go. That's where I understand, I think, why they just keep doing it.
So I agree, but I think this is something that we're really talking about and focus on. I don't think the medical system, we got to fix the incentives. We got to fix the trillions of dollars. We're going to have some policy wins. But again, I think that the real accomplishment is going to be a cultural awakening. And I put a lot of blame on the medical system. The medical system hasn't been clear about these issues. The dean of Harvard Med School and the head of the NIH, he is now, but the health leaders in this country should be beating the desk and beating the table and coming to the White House and demanding and saying that we have a metabolic health crisis among kids and parents need to wake up and we need to really think about what we're feeding our kids. And we're now doing that. But I do think there's mass affordability issues, but ultra processed food is not that cheap. I mean, McDonald's is now $10.
True. Yeah.
So we're actually, again, I'm excited about my sister getting in there, through the public health messaging accounts, educating parents how to actually, create and make and convenient, nutritious food for their kids. There's really an information gap. And I think a force from the medical system, what I always say is the medical system knows how to make a point. When in unison, all the medical leaders say something, it happens. So they said we need to shut the country down, and it happened. And the medical system is really clear. As a new parent, they're really clear that you're a war criminal if you do not take these 72 shots at the exact right time. So it's well substantiated that the medical system knows how to make a point. They made a point with the Surgeon General report on smoking, like smoking rates went down. So why isn't there that level of clarity of communication when it comes to childhood nutrition? Right now, under President Biden, but this is still in effect, the USDA put out a report saying that a diet 91% in ultra-processed food could be healthy for a child. Today, the dietary guidelines do not say ultra-processed food is bad for kids. To this day, the dietary guidelines say that up to 10% added sugar is okay for a 2-year-old to get a kid's addicted to sugar. To this day, in many states, you can buy soda on SNAP, and in West Virginia and some of these more lower income states, it's like the average 5-year-old's drinking like 3 sodas a day, like SNAP subsidized. It's like parents, like the government's not telling them that this is wrong. Yeah. They're telling them like, okay, we'll just drug your kids later. So I do think that step one is like we've kind of infantilized people a little bit, and we've kind of like hadn't given them tough love. So I think like this fitness commission, which hopefully you can get involved with, it's like, tough talking people. And Bobby Kennedy talks real talk. And, like Dana White's obviously involved in it. I think we need like that Dana White, like Bobby Kennedy.
Just like, fearless.
Like telling parents like, and I'm working on this message, right? But it's like, kind of like we're working really hard, but you've been lied to. And you as parents and us as citizens need to get this dialed in. And really, it's very simple. We need to stop giving our kids ultra-processed food. We need a kid's plate to be steak, broccoli, maybe some grains. Literally, we transform the country if that happens. We transform the country, and that's what the dietary guidelines are going to. It's not that complicated. Yeah. So the public health messaging kind of, I like that kind of, more Dana White, more whatever you want to call it, more tough talking. Like Americans need to wake up and see leadership from their medical system too. If a kid's plate has some good protein, some vegetables, some grains, I mean, we're good. Like truly, we would absolutely implode healthcare costs. Europe has half the rates of diabetes and obesity than America. Half the rate. It's half. We did a budgetary analysis recently at the, with the OMB. We take trillions off of our budget. It literally, if we just take obesity and diabetes to European levels, Europe Europe does not have great health policy. They have a socialist system. It's terrible. The answer to this is not like fixing Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement rates. They have a different culture. And I don't think we should be giving Europe much credit for a lot, but we should be studying what that culture is. But truly, if parents just woke up and gave their kids real food, we would absolutely dramatically improve the economy, dramatically improve, happiness and productivity of our citizens, and dramatically reduce the budget. And these are the things we're fighting for. I mean, like it's outside the box thinking that Trump is welcoming. Where everyone is hand-wringing about the budget and we're going to go bankrupt, and nobody's talking about this. We are now, but like the core part of the budget, the largest part of the budget is healthcare expenses tied to metabolic dysfunction. If we had this cultural awakening, it would actually solve the budget problem. So these are the type of things we're starting to open the door on. And, I think there's a lot of impatience I have for more change, a lot of impatience I know voters have, but I think we're winning.
It is so exciting at the same time. And I think some of these numbers, it's like, bam, bam, bam. I keep hearing it. But in Europe, there's a total of 300 ingredients that are put in the, versus 10,000 here. Right. No wonder. I travel a lot. I'm on airplanes a lot. I know you are too. And when you look at airports alone, you sit there and you go, oh my goodness, this is going to take, a reckoning and waking up of everybody and every socioeconomic status and every city, state, small town, whatever, to just take a look, a step back. And it is hard because it is habitual. I have a sugar problem. Yeah. I have a chocolate problem. It's
addictive.
And there are things. Okay. So, and you have a 3-year-old, one on the way.
Yes.
And hopefully many, many more Means babies. The thing is, yes, you're going to be healthy. There are some basic things that we all know. And you can live and you can have your birthday cake and kids can go do certain things at friends and sleepovers and schools, etc. It's just finding that happy medium, right? How 100%. Do you and your wife keep all of this in mind? Obviously, it's your life, right? Mm-hmm. But you still live. You still do the basic fun things and have certain meals. You give yourself a break. It's not completely
No, I think it's the food industry insight that they came up with in the 80s. I think it started where I've talked about how the cigarette industry started consolidating the food industry. So in 1990, 40% of the U.S. food supply was owned by cigarette companies, and they realized they could make food addictive, and it's a product everyone has to buy all the time, and they could kind of equate this addictive technology into food that's just a normal part of life. So the real problem is the habitual, the stats on the percentage of Americans that eat fast food like almost on a daily basis. And it's just like, so I think it's dialing in like the daily habits. And I think the message to schools and the message to parents is try not to have ultra processed food in the house. And what does ultra processed food mean? It means try to not have things with a ton of ingredients that are in a bag in the house. I mean, and then we got to get it out of schools. I mean, if we get 2 to 3 of those meals that are now, again, 70% of a child's diet right now in America is ultra processed food.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just Franken food. Now, what's wrong with that? It's really nutrient poor. It's combined with all these chemicals. It's combined with these food dyes, preservatives, and the science discussions. Well, is it this the problem? Or is the food dyes the problem? Or is the processing techniques the problem? It's a mix of everything. Like this just isn't natural food. And we actually get this a lot. It's like, can you show me a study on whether this food dye is bad, or is it this or is that? I'm like, to even study that, you'd have to have different kids and give a placebo-controlled trial, some like fake dye and some like have them chug oil. You couldn't even study this. A lot of these chemicals would be unethical to even study because they're so manifestly, obviously bad. So that's the problem with ultra-processed foods. It's this mix of a bunch of different things. And then again, that nutrient poor, the processing takes out all the nutrients, and it's high in sugar, high in salt, high in fat, but low in nutrients. So your body's kind of tricked. It wants to eat more. So that's what we try to. We try not to have ultra processed food in the house. I mean, luckily we have Casey and who wrote this book, and we do really just go by the book. It goes through how to balance a meal. Have good protein, have some good vegetables on the plate, ideally some fermented food. And if you don't have it in the house or have it in the schools, that's a start. I mean, that's really where I'm focused. It's the daily meal.
Almost.
And then sure, I mean. We've really tried to keep him from sugar. We're not militaristic about it. But if you solve the daily habits, but as I'm talking about this, and something we talk about a lot, we've got it. I want the Trump administration, and I know people in the administration want this. We want to go hard on schools. I mean, I think you can fix a lot. I think we're really, really, really letting our kids down at schools. Most schools still have soda machines and junk food. So. That I think that can change a lot.
Well, and then you have other big steps like bringing back the presidential fitness test, which I remember as a kid. I mean, that was a thing. You wanted to get that certificate.
Right.
It's like the president knows who I am, and I can do this many push-ups, and I can run a mile, or whatever it was. And like, it was exciting to me to see the news of this. And yes, it's all related with health, but that's something that is a fun thing. It's a competitive thing. We need to bring back the competitiveness in schools in that way, don't we?
Yeah, President Obama canceled it. He said it was too competitive.
Okay. Was that like 2012?
Yeah.
Too competitive.
Too competitive.
What does that even mean?
We've lost the plot. We've lost the plot. It's don't weigh patients. The fitness test is too competitive. I think this fitness commission is one of the most notable and I think important things that President Trump has done. Again, we just got to rejuvenate culture. It's kind of simple. It's like kids should eat whole food. They should exercise more, be more competitive. I mean, this is not complicated. It's actually not. And I just love it. I love, hopefully get you involved and they're going to have events around the country. And there's a lot of optimism. I'm so excited about these nutrition guidelines. I mean, that's been for years what Casey and I have been talking about, and the corruption of the nutrition guidelines.
What does this look like, by the way, in schools, again, for people who aren't familiar with what PFT once did in schools for decades,
Yeah. Well, so they launched, it's the president, and we made this very purposeful. It's the Commission on Sports and Nutrition. So it's got a nutrition component. We're going to do mass events and really evangelize these dietary principles. The guidelines come out, and then the presidential fitness test. It has not. I had talked to the executive director right before I came, who I just connect you with, and she's excited to talk to you. But they have not released the details.
Okay.
But I remember as a kid, right? You had to do a certain amount of sit-ups and some see if you could do some pull-ups and the mile. And I think it's great. And I think there's going to be you're going to have all these elite athletes go to schools around the country. And rally kids, get them more competitive.
And the nutrition aspect of it is
so the nutrition
huge.
aspect is going to be really tied to the dietary guidelines, which are going to come out in the next month or so. It's going to be radical. I mean, and that has been a super positive collaboration with the USDA. Great collaboration with farmers. But again, it's like we're not going to have this MAHA wave and not address sugar and the nutrition guidelines. Sorry, lobbyists. Like, we're going to do the right thing for kids. It's not the science that leads any policy, honestly. It is politics. And Bobby's and President Trump, the voters that they brought. I mean, women were 23% in favor of Hillary in 2016. They closed that gender gap to 7% in 2024. And then young people and independents were 50-50, which you couldn't have imagined 8 years ago for President Trump. So there was something about this MAHA wave and those voters. So, and this has been publicly talked about, but there's been this war on saturated fat, which has really demonized meat and protein. You actually basically can't really serve like steak at schools because there's this demonization of saturated fat. I mean, as a 3-year-old, any parent, like, kids love steak. It gets them full. It's protein. They love it. They like it more than candy. It's amazing. Like, steak is great. It's got a ton of nutrients. It's like, I say give kids steak everywhere. It gets them full. They feel great. Like, steak. Like Michelle Obama was trying to give them like kale burgers or something. It's like, let's give them like real food. Like real food. So we're going to
have some kale on the side.
Talk about
but
protein,
have your red meat.
Evangelize fruits and vegetables. And the fruits and vegetables. I mean, this is my opinion. Kids, especially low glycemic, berries and stuff, they can eat as much as they want. Like their body regulates well, and there's fiber in there, and to get the amount of sugar, in a Coke, you need to eat like 40 oranges or something. So like fruit's great, vegetables, some steak. I mean, that's the type of common sense things we're going to be evangelizing.
Isn't it like 35, 40 grams of sugar in one Coke, or is it more?
Oh, it's more. It's like for a bottle, I think, it's like over 40.
And your daily intake, ideally, for sugar is 20, 25?
Yeah, under the current, which is too high, but
which is too high. So one bottle of soda, and that is good enough for
40,
2.5. It's great.
Yeah, it's too high.
And again, I feel like this wasn't talked about when I was a kid, and I'm a lot older than you and a lot of other people, but still, it is never too late. And I think that's what I want people to remember too.
Totally.
I have parents in their 70s. It is never too. We watch my dad, because my dad, he'll go sneak it, and he's a cancer patient. Times 2. He's got 2. And I wanted to touch on this as well, because obviously you mentioned the loss of your mother, which it's been right at 4 years. Is that right?
Yeah, 2021.
2021.
Yeah, 4
pancreatic cancer.
Pancreatic cancer.
And it was fast.
Very fast. Two weeks from the diagnosis. Yeah.
Overall, what was her health leading up to that diagnosis?
I mean, this is one of the big things for me. We thought it was fine. And, she was very, privileged from the health care standpoint. I mean, she went to, the best hospitals to get her physicals. She went to the Mayo Clinic and Stanford Hospital like regularly. And the wild thing for me is a month or two before the diagnosis, she got her checkup and they said she looked great. And she was on 5 medications. That's the big thing, the resonant thing for me about my mom. It's just this poignance for me of her journey of the high blood sugar and getting the metformin, the cholesterol and getting the statin, 15-minute appointment on that drug for the rest of her life. They said she was healthy because at 5 medications, she was on less medications than the average 71-year-old. We have 4.9 billion prescriptions a year in the United States. The average 70-year-old is on more than 5. So she was actually by the metrics doing
below
pretty
average,
well. So I'd say your point is really important on it doesn't matter what age you're at. Because of my sister's metabolic health awakening and advocacy, she was really getting my mom on the program. So I'd say a couple years before that, my mom was losing weight and improving her biomarkers and devoting herself to this growth. She was always reading and always growing. And our house is just full of books by, Mark Hyman and other metabolic health leaders. And she, was doing all these supplements and just trying different things. It was really inspiring. Now, that pancreatic cancer we learned was growing for years, so it was too late. But I really feel like that lives within me. I mean, her journey really inspired me, and that's the foundational point my sister and I have from her death, is that she's living on with what we're trying to do. So even though it's kind of morbid, it's like it was too late for her in a way. I think just anyone being on this journey, I see it as almost like a spiritual thing. It's very gratifying, I think, to understand more about the interconnectivity of what's happening in your body. I think nobody goes on that journey, and I think more and more people are doing it around the country right now, of just like trying to understand and dial in their habits. I think it's just a really gratifying journey that impacts other people. And just from my small vantage point, writing this book, I thought it was super basic, just putting like shopping lists in and putting like tips in. So many people saying, thank God I finally have like specific tips of like what to buy. Like they just clamoring for information. We got to do more of this from HHS. It's just like basic information. And then people like saying that helped turn their lives around, this simple information, giving their book out. It's like this virality is spreading in a lot of different ways. While it didn't work for my mom, obviously in her sense, but like spread out, I have so many stories of people in their 70s, 80s that transform their biomarkers, get more into weightlifting. That's so important for people that are older, the muscle and for glucose regulation and injuries. It's just so important. And there's just so many stories of people turning their lives around, extending their lifespan. I mean, so no, this is a message for everyone. I think you have that with a lot of our parents and older people. I think a lot of people are actually like waking up across the board, and it's really important.
The book is Good Energy.
Yes,
right?
Good Energy. Yeah,
with you and your sister Casey. I am trying to picture, as a mother of older kids now, what that felt like for your mom before and after her diagnosis, to witness what her kids are choosing to do with their lives to help so many. What were those final conversations like with her?
Yeah, it was the most important 12 days of my life. The final conversations with my mom were about the impact that she had on other people. The indelible image I have is she was bombarded with letters. People sent letters and emails that we printed out, and she was covered with hundreds of different notes. And it was people that she knew very well and had a massive impact, or people that she only met a couple of times. Some of my friends who said that some advice she gave was like a defining in their lives. And so it was just that idea with such a quick window where she was planning on doing so many adventures with my dad over the coming decades, and that like quick hit of just how the time on this earth didn't matter given how your impact on other people. And then Casey had this beautiful scientific kind of analysis that when you meet someone, you actually change their, almost cellular makeup, and you actually do like live on in people in a real way, and how all those letters represented truly her changing those people actually on a biological way too, and how she literally in a way lives inside them and changed their neuroplasticity. And that concept really was poignant to me. And then she just, obviously just exponentially got weaker. And then I guess before you die, you kind of can have more like a burst of energy. And she had this burst of energy on her last day. And we carried her to the car and drove to the where she was going to be buried, which overlooks the ocean. And it was so beautiful. She embraced my dad and just was like, this was awesome, like such a good life. And just watching them was so beautiful, just like 40 years. And my dad obviously was just like expecting 20 more years. But it was just that idea that like the time didn't really matter. Like she just like, Casey and I had that. I mean, every death is different, and I don't know how many lessons to draw because there's so much wrapped up in this. but we never were even that upset. Like we were actually like really emboldened, and I felt like there was something just beautiful that I saw seeing my mom's death through Casey's eyes. And, the idea that my mom was on 5 medications, but she was still told this was like unlucky, but the cancer wasn't unlucky. And just like even fused with some of those lessons we learned from my mom in the final days, we just like wanted to share it and talk about it. And it has been beautiful. I mean, like even like now, like this toxicity and this, like, I feel like I'm at battle, but that's what I like to do. I mean, I grew up in DC, and that's how I'm trying to contribute. But like, and from my perspective, it was just like this beautiful moment that we wanted to evangelize the world. We felt like we had something to say. And then Secretary Kennedy and all these different leaders, a lot's come together in the last couple of years, where I think what we experienced and the frustration and the promise of a better system, like it just come through to a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And we're just proud to be in that battle. So it's really gratifying, but it is definitely balanced with darkness. I mean, like it is a battle. It is a battle. And I think there's information warfare happening and just like voters and just, stuff on Twitter and it's just like, there's so much emotion. There's so much money. There's genuinely people frustrated because they're dying. Their kids are dying. I mean, this is consequential. And I do think it's beautiful that President Trump has kind of marshaled. This is one of area of his portfolio, but it's happening. I mean, I know, Tulsi and the people on that side are fighting demons too.
So
I mean,
hard.
it's like he's basically marshaled these people that are like, it's like civilizational, it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Calley, I'm picturing that moment. What a gift to be able to witness that moment with your mom and your dad.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Love. How long were they married?
Almost 40 years.
Like,
yeah, it's so beautiful.
That's well beyond the average now too. I mean, what a beautiful thing that most kids probably don't get to witness, even though it was also heartbreaking. How is your dad?
He's amazing. Well, it's funny. So my sister and I were like we just felt so enlightened. Like we thought, I thought it was going to be the worst. Like my mom dying was the biggest fear I've ever had. And something about like, just her, I mean, just like her lesson and like watching that, we were just like really emboldened and just like, honestly, when she died, it was like mass gratitude. Being able to view that with her and my dad and just this idea of how she lives within us and just how beautiful life is. I mean, we've talked about this before, but we had this experience with psychedelics shortly after that, which was the most powerful moment of my life and helped like really put some of these ideas together. That was helpful for me. My dad was a little upset, which makes sense. And my sister and I, for a while, were like berating him for not being more like grateful and happy and like, and my sister and I finally talked for a little bit. It's like, it's understandable he's upset. Like we shouldn't be
about what in particular?
He's just upset about my mom dying.
Of course.
Yeah, and my sister and I felt so we were just like ready to storm the world and we were actually getting frustrated.
So you both received it like
we
different
received
ways.
It, yeah. And but we were for a while like telling my dad, hey, get on board, like let's go take over the world. And he was upset. So my sister and I had a meeting with each other and we're like, we probably shouldn't be berating dad for not being enlightened like us. That's not very good energy.
Yes.
So we just so then we stopped like trying to tell him how to act. And I'd like to think he maybe saw some of our energy and he just has been so amazing and just grateful. He goes to my mom's grave like almost every day, but he started actually found a new amazing person that's been a long-term family friend whose husband died abruptly right at the same time. And it's been beautiful. He's traveling all over the world and trying to carry my mom's good vibes forward. So it's been great.
I imagine seeing your dad smiling again and happy
he's doing great.
With a partner and
really
with
nice.
love. Like that's certainly probably difficult at first because you miss your mom, but at this point, knowing that it's providing him happiness and therefore, who knows, longevity.
Oh, my mom would have been very happy with this. And again, that they knew each other and this woman's husband abruptly died. And no, it's perfect. And it's just a lesson for me and Casey, like, don't lecture my dad how to act, just try to show good energy. And then my dad just, it's just gratitude and just trying to carry her, vibe forward. I mean, that's how we really feel. So I'm very reluctant to give any advice on death because it's so idiosyncratic to and we had this, my mom was it was just amazing and very, easy in a way because of that. But I do think, somehow having that gratitude has been really helpful, and having this mission has been a great, way for Casey and I to try to push it forward. So.
I know you have to walk back over to the White House here, so I'm going to wrap this up. I did want to ask you specifically about, it stood out to me how you talked about all of the work and the billions of dollars that are being put towards trying to find cures and treatments for cancer. My dad has prostate cancer, which is fine until it's not, it spreads, and that's where it is with him, even though it's behaving now. And he also has multiple myeloma. And I love the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, and I love the V Foundation for Cancer Research. I was on the board for a few years there. It meant so much to me. And all the focus and money is going towards cures, which is super important.
Absolutely.
And I don't hear many people saying what you said, which is the importance of going to the root to find out the why and the cause behind all of these cancers. And I know the numbers here in the United States are astronomical. How do we continue to do what we're doing to find cures? Hopefully, we keep praying about that, and put more into the why behind it so it doesn't get to that point in the first place.
Well, I think President Trump is in a great situation, very lucky, because we are going to have two things happen in the next 5 years. I think we're going to have a revolution in actual cures, given what's happening with AI and just the incredible technological advancement, which is also really scary. And we're having an awakening on the root cause. So it's interesting. Bobby Kennedy, the MAHA, is not standing against drug development. The FDA is actually this year going to approve more drugs than any time in a year in history. So there's a revolution in development. What I'd say is we've lost track of what the public health authorities, what our public authorities should be doing. The goal of the NIH is to spur advancements that, promote human health. And I think that the NIH and these apparatuses like the FDA have been really appendages of the pharmaceutical industry. So number one, I think that the NIH should be more focused on what the root cause of the situation is, and really why we're getting sick, not just as an outsourced R&D lab for pharma, because the R&D, if you find the cure for cancer, you're going to be very rewarded. I want that company to get really rich. So there's that attribute. And then this is very technical, but I think there's really broken incentives actually for disease management, not cures, and how drugs are paid out. So we're actually thinking about that really hard and how to really incentivize cures. But no, I think we spend 40 times more as a country on treatments for cancer rather than studying how to prevent cancer in the first place. We're totally off base. Of course, they're both important, but we're just so slanted towards that intervention side. And it's been a failure. I mean, we spend $400 billion a year in cancer management, and cancer rates are going up. I mean, we have to be there for our parents who get cancer. I mean, and you should absolutely see your doctor and think, I get second opinions, but think twice or listen to them very carefully. But what's this environment that's creating all this cancer? We have this is just shocking to me. It's the highest cancer rates of any country in the world, the United States, in human history. So there's 212 countries that measure cancer rates. We have the highest in the world. Interestingly, Iowa is the highest cancer rates in the country. So
what?
You can I don't make hypothesis on why that is. But so Iowa is actually the highest rates of cancer of any place in the world in the history of human civilization.
Okay, so my non-medical guess is that it's in the middle of farming country and pesticides, and
it might be. That's what some people intuit. That's a whole longer.
Oh my goodness.
We've been having great conversations with farmers actually, and that's an issue we haven't even talked about.
And you mentioned earlier
they need those tools, and they're really important.
But you mentioned earlier the farmers who are 90% of farmers voted for President Trump this past election, so they understand the importance of what he's trying to do in many ways.
They do, yeah, and that's to me the farmers is just a fact because they've been screwed in so many ways and so many incentives. And Secretary Kennedy has a long history. He's won lawsuits against pesticide companies. It's actually been really rewarding talking to them in the past couple, because these things aren't black and white.
Right.
Pesticides are needed for crop production, and farmers need to be supportive. I've actually, I think we found a really good message, because it's not about lecturing people what to do or not to do. It's about supporting them because they do want to do the right thing. But yeah, I mean, there's risks and trade-offs with everything. And I think that's just what we need to do in the next 10 years. It's not radically changing anything too much, but it's incremental change, helping innovation. I do think, I think President Trump, I think they're going to come up with the most breakthrough cancer cures in the next 4 years, while awakening a revolution in how people think about preventing these things, which Bobby Kennedy's doing. I actually think there's a lot of optimism that's coming in the next 4 years, if the AI and robots don't destroy us first.
That's a big if, Calley Means.
I think it is.
But this makes me so happy. Kind of to end on this note, you have such optimism, so much hope and true excitement. Like, I can feel that from you and certainly Secretary Kennedy. So to go along with that darkness, because there's a lot of it, and I'm sure the deeper that you dig, do you ever want to run and say, like, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming?
I feel like I've really been called to do this. And there's so many millions of people that have been speaking out and talking about these issues that have all come together. And I feel like I'm adding value as much as I can with my experience growing up in DC. And I enjoy kind of fighting the darkness, like, internally. And I actually don't think it's the most important thing. I think the most important thing is societal change and individual change and cultural change. I don't think we're going to solve this with some magic bullet policy solution, but I think the political conversation has pushed the culture too. And I feel called to do it. It is dark, and I wouldn't say it's fun.
But rewarding, certainly, when you have these wins.
And yeah, it is. And I think we're having a consequential moment in the country right now. And I want it to not be a flash in the pan. A lot of people in the deep state think that Secretary Kennedy is going to be a flash in the pan, that we're going to go back to business as usual. And I really think every day about defeating that mindset. And disappointing the many people in the scientific deep state, and having Secretary Kennedy there for as long as he wants, having him, choose his replacement, and this movement where we're actually asking about the root cause continues on. So that's my goal. You have proof that millions of people are behind you. And I believe without Bobby Kennedy joining Donald Trump last summer, we would not be here today. Absolutely not. And so what a blessing. Also, and I'll end on this, because you mentioned earlier, some of the messaging and the conversations that you guys are having, it's just not being communicated yet. It's not all out there. There aren't enough people in the media who are discussing it. So the fact that you took time for me today, and you do this a lot. This is my first one. This is my first podcast since being in there. No, I haven't done one in like months. Really? I don't think I've talked much about being in. I've been bashing. I don't think I've talked about this for a while. So I had to talk. And it was so great to catch up. I'm so grateful for your time, because, like you said, he's working 20 hours a day over the White House, along with everybody else. Close enough. But I mean that, and I mean all the podcasts over the last couple of years, long before that you were, having an extra room over at the White House for yourself. But we need that. We need to hear it from people who we can identify with as a young father, growing family, who just cares about your babies, your family, but also this country and how much room that we have to grow. So thank you. Keep talking. I'll talk to you soon. I appreciate it. Thank you.